A few weeks ago, the thought flitted through my mind that this was a season of restoring first love. And that thought, like so many of our thoughts are like seeds carried on the wind, that was a thought that took root in the soil of my soul, and I've contemplated a lot. When I think of first love, I think of honeymoon stage or honeymoon phase. When Brian and I first got married, we lived in an apartment for almost 6 months, and then we moved to the Peace Country. We got really busy when we got here. We set up a home on an acreage, and there was lots to do. And it seemed all of the sudden like the beauty of the honeymoon stage fizzled off into the busyness of the business of marriage. I remember feeling a sense of regret and loss in those days. Of course, without any experience, I couldn't know that there were many stages ahead, and some of them would be so sweet and so profound, even if they did lack that same honeymoon stage. Every single one of them would take me into a deeper experience of that first love. So I thought, wow, if Jesus is talking to us right now about a desire to restore our first love, I should pay attention. What does that mean? I mean, we never go back to where we were, but how is it to be refreshed and restored in our first love? The phrase first love is actually recorded in Scripture in the book of Revelation, chapter 2, verse 4. There's a record of a message sent from Jesus to a church in Ephesus. And it begins with commending this church for being so diligent and for enduring well, withstanding persecution. This is a really faithful church. I can't even imagine living through what they lived through. But then it says, you don't love me like you used to love me. I have this one thing against you. You have lost your first love. How do we stay in love? This church that had endured so much, why would they endure so much without love? Perhaps out of duty and obligation, out of a sense of it's the right thing to do. I can tell you that those phases in marriage aren't much fun, and I wouldn't want to stay there forever. But how do we restore a first love? We can't conjure this up. We can't try. Well, in our early years of marriage, we recognized right away what we'd been told by many people, the value of going on a date and setting aside time, setting aside the business and the busyness of married life to just remember why we liked each other and to be friends. And sure enough, it would often stir up some of those feelings of first love. When I was thinking about this morning, I thought of this box that I have tucked away in storage. I haven't looked at it for a really, really long time. This box had a perfume set in it that Brian gave to me one Christmas, and when I open the lid, I can still kind of smell the smell of the perfume it once carried. And in this box, I have old letters that Brian and I wrote to each other before we were married. You can tell just by watching that holding these letters and remembering has stirred up something inside of me. I could tell you how wonderful and awesome he is. I could tell you what color his hair is and his eyes, and you would get bored fairly quickly. In fact, I'd get bored fairly quickly. It's all so familiar. When I read those words that we once wrote to each other, it does stir something up inside of me that has the sparkle of that first love. Of course, you've probably heard that this book is a love letter written to you. But I would say many of you haven't probably experienced it that way. It has become, like the Church of Ephesus, perhaps something that's a habit and a duty and a routine, an obligation. And there's nothing wrong with those habits. I still get up and do the things I do every day to serve my husband, and they're good. Those things actually build strength into our marriage because acts of service is his love language. He makes sure that he does the things that speak tenderness and compassion to me, but they don't always have that spark, do they? They're routine, they're good, they help. But God meant for our relationship with him to always carry this spark too, of vitality, that it's real and that it makes a difference. There's an ancient practice of engaging with Scripture called Lectio Divina, and it's engaging with Scripture in a way that's not just intellectual and it's not for information's sake, but it's for encounter with God. And there's many ways to do this. It's quite common to take a simple passage of Scripture and read it maybe 3 times in a row. You could read it out loud. The first time you just read it. Second time, you could read it through with pauses. and really start to pay attention to which words jump out at you. And then by the third time you read it, you're engaged with your mind and your heart. It's living and it's dynamic. God is speaking to you. I would encourage you to give that a try. In fact, right now, let's do this together. Let's use a passage of scripture from 1 John 4:19. It's so appropriate for this. It says, "We love because he first loved us." Now, one of the first things that I would do to engage with this scripture is make it personal for me. I love because he first loved me. And even shifting it into that really personal tone brings a spark of life to it. So do you want to do this with me right now? Just relax, sit back, think about, I love him because he first loved me. And then I'd like you to say these words out loud. Just the last few, we'll break it down really small for this, and you can do this in a more extended way later. He first loved me. Would you say that out loud? He first loved me. And then let's slow it down and emphasize each word. And I would like you to do this out loud. Emphasize the first, second, third word each time you say it. He first loved me. He first loved me. He first loved me. He first loved me. Can you feel it beginning to grow inside of you? This is the spark of engagement, of relationship, of going beyond mere information, routine, or habit, but pausing and savoring all the dimensions of what does this mean? That it's him and that he made the first move. He's pursuing you. He loves you. He first. You know, when you were oblivious, ignoring him, perhaps even angry at him, there he was, the persistent lover, pursuing you. He first loved. Oh, all that this word means. And it's not just this theological concept of a God out there who's just good and benevolently watching over his creation. It's the full length and width, the height and depth, the breadth of all that love could possibly be. That's how he feels toward you. Yes, you. But make sure you say me. Own it. I bless you today. I bless you to have a fresh encounter. If you've never had an encounter with this love before, may you experience it even as you're watching this. If it's a wise, old, matured love, may you smile again with the sparkle of a fresh awareness that he does indeed truly love you.